So, Andy Burnham seems like a nice guy. I've enjoyed his dodgy dancing and even the shocking revelation that he puts the milk first in his tea. I'm glad he's got a sense of humour. It's needed in his job. But when I look at the plans that he's announced for the country, I find myself asking, is that it? Britain is the 5th largest economy in the world. There are wars in Europe and the Middle East. Hostile states are attacking our critical infrastructure. China and America are racing ahead in artificial intelligence, energy, and space. We have a demographic challenge to solve, a borders crisis requiring tough choices. And our new Prime Minister's big ideas are £2 bus fares and £45 off energy bills, when the average bill is nearly £2,000, and that will only last for 6 months anyway. Don't get me wrong, cost of living pressures are real. But the problems go way beyond bus fares and VAT on bills. Families are struggling. Young people are worrying about whether they will ever earn enough to buy a home. Some are leaving the country in search of a better future. Businesses are closing. People are working harder but feeling poorer. I'm sorry, but going by what he's announced so far, Andy Burnham's ambitions for Britain are too small. Big problems need bigger, long-term solutions. Bus fares are expensive because fuel is expensive, energy is expensive, employment is expensive, regulation is expensive. Government has made nearly everything more expensive. But Andy Burnham's answer is to cap one price and send the bill somewhere else. But somewhere else is always someone else. A taxpayer, a business, a family. Someone will pay, and they will pay in higher taxes. Andy Burnham needs to tell us who will pay for those taxes. And if he won't, we should assume it will be the same people Labour always turn to when the sums don't add up. Working people, small businesses, the people who get up early, take risks, hire staff, and try to build something. I want us to be more ambitious than Andy Burnham. Conservatives believe in aspiration. We are looking to the future, yet Andy Burnham is looking backwards, not forwards. Instead of picking up a bus fares policy that Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak introduced years ago, how about clean, cheap, abundant energy that makes us all richer? How about that? British businesses are paying 4 times as much for electricity as businesses in the US. We're paying twice as much as businesses in Spain. I want British manufacturers to compete with the best in the world. I want our young people to find opportunity here, not feel that they have to leave the country for a better future. Last night, I spoke to an employer, a Greater Manchester employer, who is opening a new factory. Unfortunately, the new factory is not in Greater Manchester. He is opening it in America because taxes here are too high and regulations make it too hard to hire staff. So he is moving jobs where it is easier, and worse than that, he is recruiting our young people to go there. And they are rushing to take those jobs because they can't get jobs at home. What is Andy Burnham's plan to fix this? He doesn't have one. Last year, I announced Conservatives would abolish business rates. Abolish business rates for most of the high street, not just pubs, but shops, restaurants, retail, hospitality, leisure. And more importantly, I showed how I would pay for it. Our new Prime Minister only wants to cut business rates by 20%, and only for clubs, pubs, and music venues. And he hasn't even found the money to pay for it. Look, I like to have a good time as much as the next person, but surely he can do better than that. 4 years ago, a Prime Minister announced policies without making savings to pay for them, and it didn't end very well. Every day, Andy Burnham seems to float a new expensive idea. A national care service that costs £18 billion, building as many council houses in the 1970s, costing £13 billion. On Monday, he said he was thinking about increasing the personal allowance. On Tuesday, he was against it. On Wednesday, he was for it again. Does anyone know what he's thinking today? Because I don't. He doesn't actually know what he wants to do. He is thinking out loud. All we know is that it is going to cost a lot of money. So I want to be very clear. Andy Burnham needs to rule out tax rises to pay for his spending spree. Rachel Reeves raised taxes, and we saw what happened after that. Employers stopped hiring and jobs were lost. Andy Burnham will repeat Rachel Reeves' mistakes if he raises taxes again. And we all know what he will say. He will pretend he is only taxing the rich. The truth is, he will punish the engineer whose factory is never built, punish the apprentice whose job never exists, punish the family whose bills rise yet again. This is what Labour never understands. Money needs to be made before it can be spent. Businesses are not cash machines for politicians. Conservatives understand that businesses are where people work. They are where wealth is created. They are what pays for everything else. Andy Burnham needs to do better. He is behaving like he's still the mayor of Manchester. He is now the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He needs to start acting like it. When you're the mayor of Manchester, you are handed a big pot of someone else's money and you decide where to spend it. I'm sure this is great fun. It can make you very popular, but it is not the same as being Prime Minister. A mayor doesn't have to fund the army. A Prime Minister does. Right now, even his Chancellor has said the Defence Investment Plan is £8 billion short. We don't know where that money is coming from. 3 months away from the next budget, there is already a growing hole in public finances for the new Chancellor to fill. Andy Burnham seems to have no interest in cutting spending, no interest in cutting the welfare bill. I made an offer to him to help get welfare cuts down in Parliament. He replied to my tweets about his T-shirt, but he didn't reply to my letter about defence. We have seen this movie before. Tax rises are coming. I have bigger ambitions for our country. I have an optimistic vision for Britain. If we want to be a richer country, a country where the cost of living doesn't bite so hard when tough times hit, we need to create wealth, not destroy it. My vision is grounded in reality. It is honest about the trade-offs we will have to make to deliver this richer, more prosperous country. A country that has clean, abundant energy, where young people are able to buy a house, not come out of university with loans they'll never repay, where people feel safe on the streets because we have built enough prisons to house dangerous criminals, not release them early, even when they have committed horrendous crimes, where we are world-leading in tech and in AI and space, and our universities stay the best in the world. Britain needs a bit more optimism. But you can't buy optimism with other people's money. You can't. If you try to tackle the cost of living without fixing the economy, you will fail. I think it's weird that Andy Burnham talks about the 1970s as if they were wonderful when everyone else thinks they were terrible. Endless strikes, rubbish not being collected, bodies not being buried, inflation at 25%, and a chancellor going cap in hand to the IMF. A chancellor called Healy, by the way. Let's not forget that. Britain in the 1980s and 1990s was an optimistic place, not because people were told to be optimistic, but because they were living in a growing economy full of jobs and opportunity. It seemed a given that people's lives would be better than their parents and their children's lives would be better than their own. That is what we need to create. And it is the country that the Conservative Party has a plan to build. our optimism is grounded in reality. His is wishful thinking. Take AI. Artificial intelligence will require vast amounts of energy and water. Data centers will go where power is reliable, where infrastructure is ready, and where government understands what industry needs. This is what we should be doing now. Instead, Labour is refighting arguments from 50 years ago. They've just nationalised British Steel. Andy Burnham is now talking about nationalising Thames Water. Nationalisation is not a solution. It's just a process. The problems remain. Changing the ownership structure does not build a single reservoir. It does not lay a single pipe. It does not create the water infrastructure we will all need in the future. But make no mistake, we will all be carrying the cost. While America and China compete over artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing and space, Andy Burnham is offering another layer of regional government and a cheaper bus ticket. He needs to lift his sights, because the world will not wait for him to get his act together. Cyber attacks crippling our businesses will not stop while he floats his ideas with the public. China will not slow down because Whitehall has launched another consultation. And Russia will not be deterred by more devolution. The threats are real. They are growing, and Britain must be ready. Andy Burnham should have been ready before he manoeuvred himself into number 10. The first duty of government is to protect the country. A serious Prime Minister should be talking about national resilience, about defence, about energy security, about sovereign capability. If we want Britain to lead in artificial intelligence, we need more young people studying maths and languages. If we want to compete in space, we need the ambition and know-how to do it, not leave it to China and the US to carve up. If we want manufacturing to return, we need energy that industry can afford. These are the choices that will determine whether Britain succeeds or fails. And before you say, why didn't you do this before? Well, I wasn't in charge before. Yes, Conservatives made mistakes in the past. I've never shied away from that. We didn't always deal with the causes of Britain's problems. Too often, we managed decline instead of reversing it. But I am the new leader of the Conservative Party, and under my leadership, we are doing things differently. We have spent time working out what went wrong, we have listened, we have developed better plans and proposed them in Parliament. How to make energy cheaper, how to make it easier to hire staff, how to strengthen our defence, how to restore control of our borders. We have laid out a plan to get Britain working again. But we're not promising the government can solve every problem. Government cannot create prosperity by announcement. It is not government that creates growth. It is business that creates growth. What government can do is create the conditions for people to succeed. It can get taxes down. It can remove needless regulation. It can secure affordable energy. It can defend the country. It can restore order. And then it can trust the people to build, to generate jobs, to create growth. That is our ambition. That is our plan. We are the party of common sense, and we have a plan to get Britain working and unite the country. Andy Burnham may be a nice guy, he may dance well enough, but Britain does not need a Prime Minister with small answers to big problems. It needs a government that looks forwards, not backwards. A government that understands the scale of the challenge. That is the future Conservatives are preparing for, and that is the future we will deliver. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. I'm now going to take questions from the media. I can see some of you squinting. I hope you can all see me. Not everybody's got sunglasses. I'll try and move quickly if that helps. Let's start with Harry Horton from ITV.
Thank you very much, Harry Horton, ITV News at the back here. Andy Burnham has said that he's willing to work cross-party on some of these big issues. Is that something you're willing to engage in? Will you work with this government to tackle some of the big issues that you've just talked about?
We're very willing to work cross-party to tackle the big issues, but they need to be serious about that. What I'm not going to do is just write him a blank check to do whatever he wants. We need to agree on the things that need dealing with. We need to fund defence. We need to cut welfare. If Andy Burnham doesn't want to do those things, then I don't think he's serious about working cross-party. I've written him a letter offering to work cross-party. As I said in my speech, he hasn't replied to the letter, although he has replied to the tweets, and he's done lots of memes and jokes. But I think it's time for him to start getting serious. Thank you. Chris Hope, GB News.
Yeah, Kemi Badenoch, a great plan now you're setting out for your party if you win power. Do you want an election now, or are you not ready for one?
Chris, I'm always ready for an election. I'm the leader of the opposition. We always want an election because I believe, Conservatives believe, that we have got a plan. We're the only ones talking any common sense. We're the only ones who've actually explained how we will make energy cheaper. No one else is doing that. Being ready for an election is just one part of it. You've got to be ready for government as well, not just ready to deliver leaflets. And we have a plan for both. We have a plan for an election. If Andy Burnham wants to call a snap election, we're ready. We have a plan for government. But I have said that if he's breaking away from Labour's manifesto and not funding defence, then he should call an election. John Healey resigned from government because he said Labour wasn't protecting the country. If that doesn't change, I would be expecting John Healey to resign again. He is the Chancellor now, so he should find the money. Otherwise, there should be an immediate general election. Thank you. Lucy McDade from Sky News.
Hello. There are reports in The Spectator today that former Home Secretary Grant Shapps has failed in his bid to be reselected as a candidate. Can you confirm if that's correct? And if so, are you kind of just unapologetically purging people from the party that used to have a place in it?
Lucy, you wouldn't expect me to be commenting on anybody's application for candidates and to be speculating about rumours. What I will say right now is that the Conservative Party is a serious party. We don't treat our former MPs or our candidates like tittle-tattle for Westminster gossip. We treat people better than that. I'm not confirming any kind of thing that's in The Spectator. What I will say is that we're going to be announcing candidates shortly, and you will see that this is a very different party from the one that was removed from government in 2024. We have got a plan, and everyone is focused on delivering for the country. That is what I want people to see, that this is a new and different Conservative Party. Thank you. Chris Mason from the BBC.
Thank you, Chris Mason, BBC News. Do you think your job has got harder or easier as a result of the change in Prime Minister?
My job is my job. Let's wait and see what happens when Andy Burnham comes back to Parliament. I'm the leader of the opposition, and right now what I see is a Prime Minister who's running away from difficult questions. All of these announcements which he's made, he should have made in Parliament so we could talk about funding, so we could ask about the Defence Investment Plan. He doesn't want to answer those questions. He wants to answer questions about whether he's put milk in his tea. So like I said, I think, Andy Burnham is probably a fun guy to hang out with, but does he have ambitions for this country? I'm not sure. I think he still thinks he's the mayor of Manchester, and I'm going to do my job and remind him that he is now the Prime Minister of the UK. He needs to start acting like it. Jason Groves from The Mail.
Oh, hi, thank you. Burnham's looking for cross-party support on this idea of a 10% levy on estates to pay for social care. Could you support that? And also, you mentioned AI a couple of times. What do you make of this AI leak that we found out about yesterday, and what would you do about it?
So on the 10% tax, I've been very clear recently. My principle is that people who've worked hard and saved their money shouldn't have to pay for social care, while those people who chose not to save then get it paid for by the state. That is unfair. I don't want to see a situation where people are punished for doing the right thing when they were working hard and making sacrifices. Andy Burnham is floating ideas. This is not a clear plan. It's very hard to say whether you support anything he says. He's not explaining where the money will come from for the announcements that he's made today. For example, when I made a business rates announcement, which was broader, I explained where the money would come from. On the subject of AI, I think it is very worrying that that this has happened, and this is why I want to see a government that is very focused on our national security, on our information security. One of the first things Andy Burnham did was close down the Science and Technology Department. That doesn't strike me as what you do if you're worried about what AI is about to deliver. I don't know what his plans are. He's put one guy in cabinet to look at AI. This is going to take much more than one person. I know from my time as Trade Secretary, from my conversations when I've had visits with GCHQ, from my security briefings, that this is becoming a clear and present danger for global security as well as our security. I'd like to hear our Prime Minister talk about that rather than about £2 bus fares. I think that's far more important. Genevieve Hall-Allen, Telegraph.
Good morning. So do you therefore not support Andy Burnham's new policy of a business rate cut for pubs, clubs and music venues? Do you think that these places are the wrong places to prioritise with business rate cuts? And also, if I may, we obviously have a new energy secretary now. It's no longer Ed Miliband. Do you think that she will take an approach to oil and gas that you can better align with? Thank you.
So, Genevieve, first of all, I'm really disappointed that you're asking me if those are the wrong places, because that means that you don't know what my business rates policy is. So I'm going to use this as an opportunity to remind everyone that our business rates policy will abolish business rates for most of the high street. So it would include all the places that Andy Burnham has talked about, but it would also have retail. It would also have restaurants. Hospitality is one of the areas that is hardest hit by Labour's jobs tax. Andy Burnham is not reversing that. What we're saying is we found the money and a better way to actually make life easier for them. So I'm happy that he is focusing on those businesses. He should focus on more. I'm worried that this is just a pie-in-the-sky announcement because he hasn't said where the money is going to come from. How can we believe him? Sorry, what was your second question? Oh, yes, the new energy secretary is just as bad as the last energy secretary from what she said, possibly worse, because I think she wants net zero by 2030. These plans are not possible. They are just slogans. You look at what sits behind the plans, and they are actually making carbon emissions increase. They are making climate change worse, not better. If we want to tackle climate change, we need to do that with serious plans that don't bankrupt our country, that don't deindustrialize the entire United Kingdom. We need to drill our oil and gas in the North Sea, where we have a low carbon footprint, rather than importing it from Saudi Arabia and Russia, where they have a high carbon footprint. This is just common sense. She's not talking common sense. There's only one common sense party, and that's the Conservatives. Ben Clatworthy from The Times, please.
Thank you. You touched on this in your speech, but we've seen a shopping list of spending from Andy Burnham in the last few days, and there are questions over how he's going to pay for all of it. Do you think there's a risk that Andy Burnham becomes Labour's Liz Truss?
I did allude in my speech to a budget 4 years ago that didn't go very well. There were other factors, but the main factor was that the budget was not balanced. Spending without funding. Liz Truss wanted to pay £150 billion of energy bills, but hadn't said where the savings would come from. It's time for Andy Burnham to start talking about where he will find the savings. This is what we need. We need common sense. We need a plan. We have a golden economic rule. We've explained where our savings would come from. We are finding more. Andy Burnham just wants to make people happy, so he's talking about clubbing and going to the pub and cheaper bus fares, but he is not the mayor of Manchester. These are mayor of Manchester ideas. Where is our Prime Minister? He needs to step up and lift his sights to broader things. Sophia Slay from The Sun.
Thank you. Do you think Andy Burnham's next cost of living measure should be cutting next year's 5p fuel duty rise? And can I get your reaction to Gary Lineker offering to pay more tax along with other millionaires?
So on fuel duty, Conservatives froze fuel duty throughout the 14 years we were in office. There is a cost of living crisis, and increasing fuel duty will only make that worse. And it's not just going to make it worse for drivers. It will make it worse for anyone who relies on deliveries and anything that relies on transport, quite frankly, to do their business. It will increase inflation. It is not necessary. So that's the sort of thing which he should be finding the money for. We have a cheap power plan where we found the money to freeze fuel duty. That's what the kind of thing that I want to hear Andy Burnham do, because that's how you really bring energy costs down. He's talked about £45 off energy bills for 6 months when the average energy bill is £2,000. That is not serious. And on Gary Lineker, he's very welcome to pay more tax. He can write a check to the Treasury. No one's stopping him. But right now, we are seeing the people who create jobs leaving the country. I am very concerned that that factory owner I talked about is setting up his business in the US, not here. If we keep taxing the people who create the jobs, who generate the growth, we're not going to have any taxes at all. So Gary Lineker can increase whatever he wants to pay. What I want to do is increase our standard of living. Tax rises do not increase our standard of living. Backing business so that they can create jobs and create growth will increase our standard of living. And that's how you deal with the cost of living, which was the first question that you asked. You can't deal with the cost of living by just giving £2 off here and £30 off there. You're just you're looking at the symptoms. You're not looking at the root cause. The root cause is that people aren't working. They're on welfare. We need to deal with that. Energy costs are too high. We need to deal with the root cause. Drill our own oil and gas in the North Sea. Get rid of net zero levies that are bankrupting the country, rather than just pennies here and there that won't really deal with the cost of living or the standard of living. Noah Hoffman from The Spectator, please.
Thank you, Kemi. I was wondering, of Andy Burnham's new cabinet appointments, who you find the most terrifying. And secondly, you said that you love to have a good time. Do you have any holiday plans, or how will you be having good times this summer?
They are all equally terrifying. And they are terrifying because I think apart from one or two people, everyone in Andy Burnham's cabinet has come from a charity, third sector, trade union, or worked for a Labour MP background. These are not the people that are going to turn the country around. You need a much broader spectrum of people. There's nothing wrong with working in the public sector. I work in the public sector now. But you need more than that. You need the experience, and they don't have it. And that is what really terrifies me. That's the thing that terrifies me. And yes, I do have holiday plans. I'm not going to tell you what they are because I don't want to see any journalists on my holiday. But thank you. David Williamson from The Express, please.
Thank you very much. The last time, whenever Andy Burnham was Health Secretary and there was consultation going on social care reform, Conservatives warned of the danger of a death tax. Is any form of inheritance tax change to pay for social care reform a red line for you that you would rule out in terms of cooperation? And also, early releases are very much a concern in the news at the moment. Do you think it's the time for Nightingale prisons to be built to avoid the need of putting dangerous people back on the streets?
Well, I'm not against Nightingale prisons. I am against rapists and murderers being let out. We never did this early release scheme. We looked at the problem and we found prison spaces elsewhere. We looked at other countries. We found ways to manage around it. But the bottom line is that we do need to build more prisons. That's going to need more money. And that means we need a bigger, stronger economy. We need a stronger economy to deliver that stronger, safer country. And I don't see Andy Burnham talking about any of those root causes. On social care, I refer back to what I said. The principle has to stand, that you can't do the right thing and put savings away only for that for you to be punished for that when someone else who chooses not to and just waits for the state to pick up the bill gets an easier ride. The principle on any social care plans that we have is that it should be fair on those people who do the right thing. Bethany Dawson from LBC.
Hello. Do you believe Andy Burnham and his team are lying when they set out the ways in which they're going to cost these policies that they've set out over the last few days? And you spoke about personal allowance and Andy's different stances on it. What is yours? Would you raise the personal allowance?
Okay. So do I think they're lying? I think that they don't know what they want to do. I think he is one of those people who thinks campaigning is the same as governing and winning an election is the same as running a country. You listen to what he says, it's all about Makerfield. What about the rest of the country? Yes, he's the MP for Makerfield, but it seems like he wants to divide Greater Manchester from everywhere else. I mean, Scotland is unhappy, Yorkshire is unhappy, London is unhappy, Cornwall is unhappy. He is not governing for the whole country, he's governing just for his constituents because he didn't have a plan beyond his constituency casework. I don't think that that's what we need in a Prime Minister. On the personal allowance, look, I'm a tax-cutting conservative. I want low taxes, but we need to find the money first. Simply discussing what nice things we want to do without explaining how we're going to get there isn't right. I would like to see lower taxes across the board on individuals, on businesses, so that they can pay people more money. That's what I'm focused on now. I've put out our 5-point plan, how we're going to deliver an economic revolution. I've said where we'll cut energy costs. I've said where we'll cut taxes. More tax cuts will come, but more savings are going to be found. I've shown which regulations we're going to remove. More regulations are going to be removed. I've said how we will get people working. We're going to bring back flexible labour markets. We're going to scrap Labour's Job-Destroying Employment Rights Act. And we're going to back business and let them know they're actually welcome in this country so that they don't leave. We've got a plan for all that. I don't really know what Andy Burnham's plan is, and that's what worries me. Penultimate question, Lauren Bell-Cross from the Jewish Chronicle.
Hi, Kemi. A question on foreign policy, if I may. Many in the Jewish community are concerned about what they see as Andy Burnham's increasing fixation on Israel. So his apology for the party's previous stance on Gaza. And then yesterday you had Wes Streeting use one of his first outings as Defence Secretary to criticise Israel. What is your reaction to that? And would you do things differently?
I think that, yet again, this is a government and a prime minister and a defence secretary and even a foreign secretary that have the wrong priorities. We've just heard about how AI broke out of its test and hacked into secure servers, stole data, and pretty much destroyed the test that it was being put under. That worries me. This excessive focus on what's going on in Israel and Palestine is because that's what their backbenchers are concerned about. I have had my security briefings. I remember as Trade Secretary how important the relationship with Israel was, whether people like it or not. There are British citizens alive today because of intelligence that Israel gave us. I am very worried about a lack of cooperation because this government wants to please its backbenchers. They need to do what is right for the country, not what is right for the Labour Party. And right now, Andy Burnham seems to be managing the country for the Labour Party, not for the United Kingdom, and not for the people of the United Kingdom. I think that's completely wrong. And final question, Millie Cook from The Independent, please.
Thank you, Kemi. Nigel Farage is facing pressure over his finances, and Labour has been lagging in the polls for a while now. Why aren't the Tories out in front, and why are voters not flocking back to your party?
Because voters haven't seen that there's an election yet. They're looking to see what this new Prime Minister is going to be like. Nigel Farage is fighting a by-election to get the job which he had just a couple of weeks ago. I think he's showing that he is not serious. But voters flock in an election. I think looking at polls just give you a snapshot of what people may be thinking. They're not actually what happens in an election. And I always remind people of the 2017 election when I became an MP for the first time. We were 20 points ahead in that poll and we lost our majority. What's important is the plan you have for government. Running around chasing polls is what Andy Burnham is doing right now. I can tell that he has looked at what do the polls say and what do I need to do. That is not how you run a country. That's not going to be my way. I'm going to be taking long-term decisions, sometimes tough decisions. I will explain where the money is coming from. It'll all be common sense, and people will see that I've actually got a plan to get this country working and bring people together rather than divide them like other parties would do. Thank you. Oh, yes, sure. Yeah. So question from The Guardian. Wait for the microphone.
Just two very, very quick things. When Andy Burnham was Greater Manchester Mayor, the growth rate in Greater Manchester was in general considerably better than the UK average. Do you think he was just lucky, or do you think it was partly what he did? And then the second very, very quick one is that you recently give quite a few speeches and interviews where you say the Conservative Party under you is quite considerably, or is moving further towards the right. I'm told every time you say that in Lib Dem HQ, a kind of cheer goes up, because they think that their blue wall seats are now, the 60 or so seats they won for you last time are more and more safe. I understand you want to make the party on your own image, but do you worry that image, or at least perhaps the messaging, is a bit too narrow to have the coalition of voters you need to win?
Okay. So on the first question, I don't think Andy Burnham was lucky, but I think that people like Howard Bernstein had actually done the hard work to put Manchester in a better place. Andy Burnham was a successful mayor of Manchester because George Osborne pretty much imposed that devolution settlement on them. And some of the things that he did do there are not the things he's talking about for the country. The things that helped Greater Manchester were supporting business. And let's be honest, a mayor just spends the money that he's given from central government. He's not raising that money himself. And that is the difference between the job he had before and the job which he is doing now. So I'm not saying that Andy Burnham wasn't a good mayor of Manchester. I actually worry that there is an assumption that simply having a mayor without knowing who that person is and whether they have the skills to do the job is enough. He's talking about a lot more devolution, but not everybody is a Boris Johnson or a Ken Livingstone or an Andy Street or even an Andy Burnham, and I think that he has been quite optimistic with his regional devolution policy. That's what worries me. I want him to talk about where money is coming from. That's what his new job is, how he'll fund defence and so on. And on the second question, Lib Dem HQ can cheer all they like. It's just another example that they don't know what's going on or what they're doing. I have been very clear that I am firmly on the right, but I'm not trying to appeal to people who are just on the right. But I want people to know what I am and what I stand for. You may not agree with everything I say, but you know where I stand. What I stand for right now is common sense. Common sense is not unique to the right. What I'm asking for is the votes of people who have common sense, who can see that things aren't working. Not drilling oil and gas in the North Sea or drilling oil and gas in the North Sea. It's not a left or right issue. Trade unions want to see drilling oil and gas in the North Sea. It's a common sense issue. And actually, in my career, there were many times, if I look at the battle for, single-sex spaces and women's privacy, it was the women of the left who supported me first. And that shows that when you have a common sense agenda, people from across the political spectrum will support you. But that doesn't mean that you should move to, sort of wishy-washy centrism. That is the mistake. They're just assuming that you can divide the left and the right, and that's how you win. You win by having a very clear agenda, a clear plan, telling people what you're going to do, how you're going to do them, and show that you mean it. And what I want people to see right now is that I mean what I say. I'm not having people in the party who want to do something different from what I want to do. Because the country is going to have a big mess to clean up when Labour is finished. I'm sorry to say that, but it is true. And we are going to be ready from day one. Thank you, everybody.